I got to hop on a call with Ryan Pineda, and I got to see kind of behind the scenes of his wealth con that he's doing. Actually getting coached about how he's going to be presenting it. And he was telling him basically how to pitch to a group of people. If you're running a business, you're always going to have to talk to a group of people. What sales are is a transference of emotions, right? You can't, a good salesperson transfers emotions about how they feel about a product, what they know about a product, and are able to convince that to someone else. And it's not a transference of information, because if it were, people would be reading an article and just buying things all day, right? They don't need the stuff. They don't feel like they need it, etc. So to get from point A, total disinterest, to point Z, which is interested enough to pull out the wallet and make the transaction, there's incline that you have to visualize. And so take whatever example you need to, whether you're selling something in your business, whether you're selling investors, just take a snapshot of, just take a look at how you're going to be presenting. And then imagine that there's an incline. There's a hill you have to climb with them, and there's different sections to it, okay? I think I've talked about this before, but it is very good to understand. So you're starting at zero. This person has little or no interest in purchasing a product that you're going to bring to them. And people will pay to go to these seminars, right, to learn from someone. And they'll show they have an interest in learning. They show that they want to, for example, get into real estate, which is a lot of what WealthCon is going to be about, which, by the way, looking behind the scenes, it's going to be awesome. I'm excited to go. I don't know if they might, I don't think they're sold out, but it's pretty exclusive. It's worth checking out, just a free plug for those guys, because this is going to be a lot of huge value, right? The way I'm painting it's going to sound like a sales pitch, but honestly, it's pure value. There's so many professionals there, and they're talking about pitching their secondary class, but that's the purpose of most of these things, is to pitch a secondary class, right? That would be point Z. And to do that, you have to have them pull out their wallet or agree to a payment plan or something that's above the level of commitment that they're currently at, which can be difficult, obviously, right? Well, the question you have, if you picture an incline, is how long do you have? And how steep is the sell, right? If you're trying to go to people on the street and sell them a $10,000 car, it's going to be a pretty steep incline, right? Because you're just going to talk to them for a matter of minutes and hope you get some kind of lead. That's not going to fly. Obviously, it's a higher ticket item, so it's a steeper sell. But if you draw that over a long time, right? For example, dealerships do this where they call people day in and day out. Do you need a car? Happy birthday, happy anniversary, touching base. Do you guys need to sell a car? Do you know anyone interested in buying a car? They'll call them. They have schedules to call them, and it might be months before they even get someone to come in and look at a car, but it's a big commitment. So that's understandable. Very long incline. If you've ever bought a new car from a dealership, absolutely sucks. And I cannot recommend it, having seen behind the curtain on that one, because you're paying a lot of money to a dealership, and you could be getting a fairly new car used from the private market. I'm not even going to get into that. The point is, those sales take forever. They take 3 or 4 hours, right? Of course, there's paperwork and stuff like that, but there is a huge process where they have to get you up that incline, and they know they do, and they know there's certain steps along the way. Now, I might totally botch the order, so don't take this at face value, and it depends on the product, what you're trying to sell, right? And if you're not selling a high-ticket item, by the way, you should consider it, because even if you're selling a small-ticket item, if you're just selling crafts, you're just selling food, right? That can become a big ticket item because you can franchise it. You can make a business out of it. And that's generally the most logical next step. So almost anyone who's in business has to understand this to some degree, because you're going to be trying to gather people with similar interests. You might even hold conferences to sell people your franchise in the future. Just an option, just painting a picture of it. In any case, the order that it goes, the first thing is build rapport. Why should we listen to you, right? Make sure that now, there's 2 sides to this. The first one is to make sure that they know that you know what you're talking about to some degree. Anything you can throw in there to say, it's just your typical credentials. It doesn't have to be anything too fancy, honestly. The second side of rapport is to say that you understand their situation. If you've been in their situation, if you know where they're coming from, that's great. Now, you're not even going to talk about the problem you're trying to solve or anything like that, right? Let's say you're trying to sell a Dunkin' Donuts franchise to a group of people. You're going to start with saying, like, I've owned Dunkin' Donuts franchises. I've been in this for 10 years. I've been a business owner. I've exited successfully, whatever you've done, right? That's the first half of a rapport. The second half would be, I've been exactly where you guys are. I wanted to find a way to get my money to work for me. I wanted it to do it in a way that was sustainable and growing. You know, I wanted to make sure I wasn't just blowing my money away. I didn't want to get tied down to something. I wanted something that was fun, that my family would like, that would build my community, right? I wanted to make sure my money was put somewhere useful, that I could keep track of it, that was comfortable, that had a good track record, all this stuff, right? You're just kind of painting a picture. Now comes the nails in the coffin, so to speak. And again, I might totally botch this, but it is a great way to structure it loosely, depending on the size of it. Like I said, the incline could take WealthCon, for example. They're selling a $30,000 course, which, by the way, seems worth it. There's some awesome perks on it, and they're not sponsoring me or anything. I've seen behind the curtain, and it's like genuine value. It's impressive. But it's $30,000, so the incline is over 3 days. So the middle part of that, first one's rapport, right? A and B parts of rapport. The second part is, I have my notes on here, right? We'll see. Okay, the second part is making sure that they are aware of the problem, and part of it, you tell a story, you paint a picture of the problem, and then you collectively come together to a solution. And the way they're doing it is brilliant because they're breaking it up with different speakers. For example, they have different types of courses, different facets to this, right? Some of it's, there's Christianity in here. I'm going to read this list. I'm just going to tell you, like, because they probably want you to know this. They have a program, so they have group coaching calls and stuff, and they'll talk about accountability, one-on-ones with Ryan Pineda, creative financing, wholesaling, flipping, direct-to-seller marketing. All calls. Oh, and there's Airbnb where you can have pro host and then wealthy business. All this stuff. Each one of those facets has a speaker. And the importance of that is that when you have a speaker who can come in and speak to the value of it, they're able to paint the picture of what kind of solution they need. They're able to say, for example, Airbnb. Ryan Pineda is big on Airbnb, and there's a whole wave about it. Some people think it's dying. Some people think it has a bright future. All I know is I've seen lots of people become millionaires fairly quickly with it, all right? And I've considered it myself. But imagine there's someone who, is a millionaire, who did very well doing Airbnb, and they do have a speaker doing that. Not sure who it is. I'd have to look it up. But I've seen the YouTube video, forgot the guy's name. He's going to talk about Airbnbs. And the goal is that by the end of it, he's going to have presented the solution. Now, here's the thing. You have your solution, right? His solution to Airbnbs, to make people successful at Airbnbs, is this package that is $30,000, $25,000 if paid in full. And I'm not trying to pitch it. Otherwise, that you do not bring up the price. You don't bring up the package, etc. That's at the end. All right. Right now, you're presenting just the solution, right? Not your solution, the solution. You're helping people come and agree on it. So this Airbnb guy gets up and says, you know what? I had these Airbnbs, and as I started to grow, I needed direction. I needed to know how to find these things. I needed to know how to flip them, collect contractors, whatever the problem is. And I'm not necessarily in on the specifics of what ProHost is, how he's going to be pitching the Airbnb solution. But that's what you do. You paint the picture, and this person might tell their whole story and get to the end and be like, I made millions of dollars, whatever. It was great. I would highly recommend these tools. It might even just be practical advice. But then the MC, whoever is directing this thing, will come in and say, isn't that great? So they'll ask them questions with the audience, make sure they're engaged. Like, doesn't that sound incredibly valuable? Can we agree that Airbnb's definitely valuable if you know what you're doing? Yes. Let's say that there is a tool. Let's say there's, all right, ProHost. I'm going to sound like a fool if I mess this up. So just hold on while I pull in my Google and find out what. All right. ProHost is just someone who hosts multiple Airbnbs. All right. I don't want to sound like a fool. So I'm going to change up this analogy, right? let's make it simpler, right? Let's stick with the Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know why I changed it. You present the solution, but not your solution yet. All right, that's simple as that. So the solution, obviously, you guys have money, you want a comfortable place to put it. You're excited about Dunkin' Donuts. You know about it. You like the coffee. You like the donuts. You're passionate, right? Can we all agree on that? And, everyone who's there for a conference about a Dunkin' Donuts franchise is going to be saying yes. Obviously, the thing they want to do is put their money somewhere where it's going to be safe. You're going to make it the solution, right? And you're just going to guide them towards that. How do you do that? Here's a great tip that I heard. This blew my mind. I know not a ton of people listen to this podcast, but everyone needs to hear this. Guys, if you know someone who can use this, who's trying to pitch people, who's trying to sell something, please share it with them, all right? Personal plug. Like, I know I have an intermission plug, but this is just another plug because this value blows my mind, all right? If you're trying to convince a room full of people about something, and almost guaranteed sometime in your life you're going to do it, because you're a leader, right? If you're listening to this, you're a leader. I know you are. You're going to be in charge of people. You're going to have to sell them on something. And this tool applies specifically to try and present the solution, right, in the middle of your incline. If you remember, we're still on this incline. But it can be used in other scenarios, and that is what we call Team ITR and Team OTR. What? You're using freaking acronyms? I'm the first person to disown acronyms. In fact, I'm going to take that all back. It's team inside the room, us, we here, and then team outside the room, people who don't know, people who don't care, maybe your family, etc. Now, obviously, you don't want to go, you can actually use gestures. If you're on YouTube, you can see me doing this. I gestured it. It was habitual, honestly. And you probably know this, but putting it in terms that you can understand, make it really easy to follow. And it's a great tool to fall back on, because everyone knows if you're on stage, if you're in front of people, if you're presenting something in any way, in any sales capacity, you're gonna clam up, you're gonna forget everything, and you're just gonna have to fall back on your training. So this is one thing you can remember: is team inside the room, team outside the room, right? You're just gonna paint two different pictures. Everyone in here knows that owning a Dunkin' Donuts is a great way to get financial freedom. There's some people out there who are saying, you're gonna buy a Dunkin' Donuts. Are you serious? Aren't there better franchises? They don't know. They haven't done the research. There's people who are like, well, just invest in a 401k. That's team outside the room, right? You can use gestures and get visual with it. Now, obviously, you don't want to over-vilify the people outside the room, because those are friends and family that we're talking about. You don't want to be like, those people are evil, too directly. But you want to say that they don't understand, right? That's a really good way to paint the picture of people outside the room. Now, if you want to get a little more granular, same concept. You can have people inside the room who are in two groups. People who have already bought into it, right? Maybe there's franchise owners there who just want to learn more, right? And you could call them all sorts of fancy names that make them sound like they have made the right choice. They're successful. They're creating wealth. You could call them wealth creators, right? Say these Dunkin' wealth creators over here. Dunkin' good businessmen is something like that. People who have done it, you can talk about them as one. And by the way, this is, let me just say, this is all labeling. People love to label, and it's a really good tool. And it's a really good way to tell stories and make examples. So you're going to have, there's two groups, is inside the room, outside the room. And then inside the room is split into two. All right, not too complicated. It's going to be the people who've done it, the Dunkin' good investors, and then people who don't know yet or don't understand or who aren't going to grasp it, right? Which is hopefully going to be no one, obviously. But, at the end of the day, especially if you're selling a high-ticket item, it's going to be the majority of people in the room. Now, you don't want to belittle them, because they're the people who actually paid to come to your conference, or who are sitting in front of you, giving you their attention, who agreed to take a phone call, whatever, right? They're divided into two groups: people who have done it or who will have done it, right? Maybe it's a brand new thing, right? So these people invested in a Dunkin' Donuts, Dunkin' good business people. And then there's people who haven't done it yet, who are maybe you can call them browsers. They're browsing their options, and they might never settle, because they're just going to try to find the best franchise out there. And you can say things like, do you know how long it would take to find the best franchise out there. Well, these people think they can do it, and they're going to go to all these conferences and waste all this time while the Dunkin' Good business people are already in there making money, right? And then those are just two examples to polarize the labels. And of course, no one wants to be, everyone wants to be a Dunkin' Good business person at the end of the day, right? They want to sound smart and intelligent, like they made the right choice and they're on top of the game. And there's scarcity and all sorts of those other tools that you can throw in as you go, and it will become habitual as you practice. I'm learning a lot of this. I'm learning so much better communication. If you listen to my early podcasts even, it's only been a few months, and those things were crap. I stumbled all over the place. Now, it helps because I do have notes on my screen right here. Huge help to organize my thoughts, but I am trying to take a perspective of people are actually listening to me, and I'm not just trying to ramble through an idea that I'm excited about, because people get in lizard brain mode. That's something I learned, and they'll just talk for days because they're excited about something. For example, this is supposed to be a short 10 to 15 minute podcast. We're 17 minutes, but that's because I'm trying to add value, but I do keep rambling, right? And I might have dipped into that lizard brain where I'm rambling. If you're presenting something, you gotta really be aware of that, because one thing you know about sales, you probably already know this, is people don't like to be talked to. It's no fun. Absolutely not. Unless they go to a presentation, and then if they do, they only like to be talked to if they feel like they're being talked with, agreed with, if they feel like a person who's there, if they feel conversational, if they're able to cheer or say yes or raise their hand. That's the closest you can get to a conversation. Now, one-on-one conversation on any day of the week is going to be better than presenting to a group of people. But to try to get them up that ladder, well, obviously you have to get them up that incline somehow in mass. And to have the best conversion possible, do these tools. And I'm going to break it down at the end just to re-simplify it so you know what we're talking about. And it's going to be like the last 5 minutes. So like if you want to write it down, that's what it's going to be. You can come back to the episode. You can save it for later. So you can just scribble this down on a notebook and use it next time you have to. Anything, build a sales process, whatever. But this is what they call platform sales, which is where it's based on an event. It's based on bringing a lot of people together and then getting them to go into the funnel from the event, right? And it's a very big, thick middle of the funnel place, essentially. The last part of the incline to get them over the top of the hill is when you have the big reveals, right? The plot twist, the climax. If you imagine the hero's journey, there has to be something kind of shocking, revelatory that makes them go, oh yeah, or cool, or I can do that, or wow, then I really should do that, right? Because if it's just like, if you just presented the solution and said, here's the solution, you need a Dunkin' Donuts, it's a great place to put your money, Dunkin' Donuts franchise, that's the solution. You can say, well, we're starting franchisees out, and every single person in this room can be approved for it right now, right? That's I don't know, maybe that's a dumb example, and that's really on the nose, and you probably wouldn't do that at a conference, but the point is that there's kind of this big promise. There's this big guarantee that anyone who tries to do this is going to be successful at it. All these things we've been promising all along, you can qualify for, which just opens the door to say, there's franchising or whatever you can do with your product, however you can make it fly. Just an example. But like if you have someone who is, who's owned a Dunkin' Donuts, who's at this conference, and they're a Dunkin' Good businessman, and there's a story about them, etc. Maybe they even presented. You can even tell a whole story about them and say, like, this Dunkin' Good businessman, he was the first one, he made millions of dollars, and, he did great. You tell the whole story, and then they might even present this Dunkin' Good businessman, and then at the end you just reveal, and you'd be like, he was the guy I was talking about. Ooh, plot twist. You got their attention, and they go, oh. And then everything kind of comes rushing back, and they're like, oh, well, that guy's like really rich, and he had a really cool story, and who wouldn't love to do that? And we're saying we can do that exact same thing. Easy as cake. It's a no-brainer. So then you present your solution, and you have to present it as the most obvious answer, the most doable, all this stuff. And there's minutia to it, but if you remember that very loose framework, that's going to be good. And I promise the last, what is it? I'm going to give myself 5 minutes. I'm going to go over it again so that you can just write it down. Ready for this? You have the incline, you have the beginning, you build rapport, which you do by asking questions. First of all, build rapport on yourself as a speaker or your business, etc. Then, and use numbers and statistics, but not in a boring way, in a way that contributes to the goals of the people who are there. Okay. And the second part of building rapport is showing that you understand the person there. You can describe their situation, and you can literally just like look at someone on the front row and pull the mentalist, mind trick and pretend you can read their mind and be like, you must live in an apartment in a big city and you have $100,000 sitting around from your last exit, whatever. Just paint a picture of where they're at and try to be as relatable as possible. That's rapport. That's the first chunk of this triangle. And there's 3 chunks. All right. Taking someone up the incline. So imagine a right angle triangle. What's that called? Isosceles. Then the second part is presenting the solution, not necessarily your solution, but bringing them naturally to the solution, right? You can do this by telling stories, but and then the tool that I mentioned is splitting into 3 groups, right? Fibonacci sequence style, if you know what I'm talking about. You split it in half. First, there's the inside the room people, and you can gesture inside the room, you and me, the person sitting across from me, the people in this area. Outside the room, people who don't understand, people who don't have the drive that you do, people who aren't going to end up where you are, people who say no, people who, maybe your parents said, why are you going to this dumb conference? Again, don't vilify them. And then the team inside the room is split in half as well. There's people who have purchased or will have purchased. Preferably, you're going to have some kind of success stories that you can tell, right? They might not even be there, but that's going to be the success stories. And then the other part is the people who aren't going to be successful with it, who aren't going to take it to heart, who are going to neglect it. Again, don't vilify anyone ever. That's a good rule of thumb for this. But you do want to make sure that they understand that they can, as gently as possible, that they could miss out by making the wrong choices, something like that. Then once the solution is solidified, big reveal, here is our solution. And of course, it should come with an offer or a promise or a plot twist or all of the above so that it can really be driven home, so that you can say, and this is always the hardest part, by the way, holy cow, is the final offer, right? If you've ever done summer sales, if you ever sold anyone to anyone, you present an argument or something and you get to the final part and it's the big ask and your heartbeat races as soon as you do the thing that's over the threshold of, I'm not just explaining crap anymore, I'm trying to ask for money, right? That's when this is. Hopefully it'll make it easier. If you have something like a big reveal that this is the obvious answer, if you can puzzle over that and then find, kind of a one-liner, kind of something that makes it easier for them to digest. Financing is a great way to do that. And just say, if tie it to a solution that you presented earlier, say how they can do it, say that they should come to you for it, hit on old rapport, all that stuff. You can feel free to summarize everything up until that point of the incline, right? And that's how you do the final part. And it's really good to have it memorized, because that's when you black out. That's when you forget what you do. And that's when you say, it's $30,000. Thanks for coming. Have a good one. DM us, talk to the salespeople in the back. Bye. Right? You get out of breath and you just rush through it and you feel like a jerk because you're asking them to do something. When in reality, if you've done everything right, the audience would be asking you, how do we contact you? How do we get in touch? All this stuff, which of course you do have to handle them. So that's the last one. Present your solution. Feel free to reiterate stuff like that. Reiterate their problems, how it solves their problems, how they can do it for very easy, all this stuff. And that's just a very loose framework. It works in a lot of situations, and that's my 5 minutes. I timed it. Those are the notes. Thanks for watching. I hope to have a lot more really specific value like this, because I'm learning so much. This is just the beginning, and I'm going to start getting some clients on here, I promise. Anyways, thanks for listening, and have a good one.